Okay, I think I will get this rolling. So thank you for joining us. I'd like to ask you, what has been the most challenging part about your advocacy for your CASA child during the pandemic?
Well, I have two cases going, and the children are on one. There's a single child on one who's just turned 3, and then the other one, there's a child that just turned 8, and his little sister's 6. And probably the most challenging thing is to try to keep their attention over a Zoom or a FaceTime meeting. My experience so far is they don't last very long. They quickly lose interest. You can't hold them, you can't play with them. So to me, that's probably been the most challenging. And the second most challenging is when the internet goes down. My first court hearing over Zoom, the internet went down a half hour before the court started. So I had to participate just over a phone. And that's kind of scary if that's going to happen again. And yesterday the power went out for 2 hours. Luckily, I didn't have any court thing going, but I was in the middle of a Board of Commissioners meeting in mid-sentence, and the power went off. So that's kind of worrisome.
My case has children who are from the same family in 3 different foster homes. 4 of them are in a pre-adoptive home and they're far away. Doing Zoom with them, the first time all 4 got on at once and it was chaos. More recently, the pre-adoptive mom puts them on one at a time and we have individual conversations. They're old enough to do that and they know me well enough, so it has worked well. They have an older sister who just graduated from high school and is living in a different place than they are, in a foster home. She's in collaborative care. And challenging was to figure out how to celebrate that graduation with her, how to really recognize and the advent of going to college and to help her figure out what that's going to look like. What we did do is 2 different times I met with her over Zoom to celebrate her graduation. First, when the national televised graduation party and President Obama spoke, she was watching it from her television in foster care. I was watching it from home, but we were Zooming together at the same time, so we could comment about the address and those things. And we did the same for her high school graduation. I sat at home and watched the local high school publication of her graduation and cheered when she appeared on the screen. And she was at her foster home with some brownies that I had dropped off. So those are some things that have been challenging.
This is my first CASA case, and I just finished my training in February and got assigned to my first case first week of March, and I have not had a chance to meet the 4 kids face to face yet. So my first meeting with them has been on Zoom, and my subsequent meetings have been on Zoom. So it has been a challenge in terms of both scheduling these Zoom meetings, because we need someone with technology that is reliable. So either a phone or a laptop, and or also looking at somebody with a Wi-Fi connection. And sometimes you have one and not the other, so it's trying to get that. And that, by the way, it's also been the same situation with trying to talk to the parents as well as set up team meetings with the parents and the service providers. And the second challenge has been that through technology, it is very difficult to build a relationship if one is not already there. So the kids are, of course, they know that they should be talking with me and we should be conversing, but so far the meetings, they started off very short, 5 or 10 minutes at the most for each kid. And then slowly now, as I've started kind of learning more about them and they're starting to learn more about my kind of role, I think they're opening up and the meetings are going a little longer. So I'm really looking forward to the time when I can, when I can actually meet them face to face.
I've gotten 2 new cases during the pandemic, so I haven't been able to meet those children, and they are younger also. So it's been harder to well, it's hard to develop a relationship with them. So I've just been working hard to maintain an interaction and keep them engaged and keep that going for a little bit of time. And then with the other cases, it's like everyone else, you just miss seeing the people that you want to see. You miss seeing them in person.
How do you think you've surprised yourself in terms of your advocacy during this time?
I've been surprised that the kids that I have that I already know, that I have been able to keep up that connection we've been using FaceTime. And I guess kids are just more excited about technology than I am. And so I think it's kind of interesting for them. I have a 2-year-old who has been showing me the artwork that she's done in between times. And she brings me different toys, new toys that she might have. She's told me about the things the family's doing. Now her mother says, why don't you ask her about going to work, her sister's house or something like that. And so then I can ask about it, and she's talked about it. So I felt like we've been able to maintain that. Also really surprising is I do feel like I know what's going on in the homes. Talking to the child, seeing them interacting with the caregiver also during the visits, I do feel comfortable in knowing what's going on in their home still.
I would say probably not really. I've been exposed to Zoom a lot because of my work at the chamber, that I go to a lot of meetings via Zoom. So I've learned it pretty well. I would think, kind of like Karen, the relationship with I'm fortunate that both of my cases I had for both of them were about 2 years before this started. So I knew the kids, I knew the parents, I knew the foster situation. So I feel really connected, and I feel comfortable that I know what's going on in the foster homes and what's going on with the parents. I guess I'm surprised that it would be so hard, but it has taken a lot of effort to do that. It's hard to schedule meetings sometimes, and the people on the other end have more trouble. And some of DCS has a lot of trouble with Zoom. That's a long answer, but I'd say that's probably the thing that surprised me.
I'm not sure that the surprise I'd like to talk about is how I surprised myself, but I already mentioned the 4 younger children and then the high school graduate, and they have one other sibling. He's in a different foster home, and he's way out in the countryside, very isolated, and I've connected with him on Zoom. He's a high school age boy, and I was surprised that he's so eager to connect. So after talking on Zoom, and actually he aims the camera at the ceiling fan most of the time. I'm not looking at his face most of the time, or he has his hoodie tight over his face, but he's chatting with me, and then I'll say, well, would you like to meet again sometime on Zoom? I guess so. I say, well, when would you like to meet again? And he names within a week, and typically I met with him only every month or so. He's quite lonely, I think, and I have advocated for getting his bicycle fixed so he can do biking. I've gotten him some weights so he can do weightlifting, but he's eager to talk with me, but not really face-to-face, more like just offhand. But yeah, let's meet again next Monday.
The kids have actually surprised me more so than me surprising myself. Then the kids have been very resilient. I think these are 4 kids ranging multiple ages. And they have shown themselves to be resilient and trying to not only keep themselves busy and kind of stay on task, but also interacting with each other and with the foster family. So I think the kids have shown that, and I think I've had to be patient in terms of just kind of my interactions and making sure that I'm playing a support role for them and kind of answering whatever questions they have and being there for them.
What do you think is one thing you'd like to say to someone who's considering becoming a CASA or considering becoming involved with CASA?
This really is, I think, an opportunity to have a very direct and immediate impact on families and bringing families together, keeping families together, supporting kids who are separated from their families. And I think I cannot think of anything that is more worthwhile than this particular cause. And sometimes you see many of these difficult situations, and I think this really is a very worthwhile cause in terms of trying to put either time, effort, money, any of these things into it. So I feel very fortunate. I know that we are there to help the kids and the families, but believe me, there is a very direct positive impact on myself as an individual, because I feel more self-worth for myself as well.
I've talked with people who were thinking of becoming CASAs. Sometimes they ask me, isn't it too emotional? Isn't it too difficult? And my answer typically has been, it can be emotional, it can be difficult, but the lives of these children are difficult, and the impact that we can have is so amazing. The children that I've advocated for, I think, are in a much better place than before they became involved with DCS. It's not just my work, but it's the work of CASA and of the courts, and it's heartening to me. So I feel good that I've done that. Also, I do a lot of volunteer work, but during this pandemic, this has been one of the things that I didn't need to give up doing. I was able to continue, and important to continue. So it's, I'd say it's a good thing that I'm involved in it, and I'd encourage anyone to do it.
I say we really need people to get involved and to help. Between the stress on families from COVID-19 and then DCS changing their standards back to what they used to be before deciding to bring a case, we need a lot of people to step up and volunteer. And I certainly would agree with Diana and Shankar that it's a very worthwhile thing to do. And I hear, when I talk to people, they often say what Diana said, they fear they would be too emotionally involved. One lady that I've tried to get to do this several times always says, I would just want to take them home with me. And, I try to tell them that, yes, it's emotional and sometimes it's hard, but it's very worthwhile. I've been doing it for 7.5 years, and the cases I've had, the kids have always ended up better than where they would have had there not been a CASA. Very often, my first case, I think we had at least 5 different DCS FCMs and dozens, it went for like 3 years, and dozens of different service providers. And so I was the only constant in this young man's life. He was not with his mom. He ended up in several different foster situations. Nobody knew where his dad was. And this was a high school age kid, so you could really connect. And it was very worthwhile, and I know things turned out better. I don't think we would have graduated from high school if it hadn't been for the work of CASA. Or you were on this case with me, so you know how far that young man came.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, Jim. Karen, what would you say to someone who's considering becoming a CASA or considering becoming involved with our CASA program?
Sometimes when I'm visiting children, other family members or family friends will come by, or maybe we'll be out in public and we'll run into people. And when we meet these other people, the children almost always just proudly say, "This is my CASA," instead of using my name. And I think that just shows the special relationship between a CASA and the children. And it also shows the importance of the role of the CASA. There are so many children out there that really need a CASA strong role model in their lives. And I know that it is difficult. Not all people have the time or the ability to become a CASA, but I hope everyone can find a way to support CASA, which in turn will support these special children in need.